Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I am Paul John Dykes, and I am genuinely delighted to be joined today by JP Mason. It's the first time I've been on the Axon Bulletin, JP. I know you've been busy yourself. Tell me, we're going to kick it off with a bit of music chat. Sorry for everybody who doesn't like that, but you were at quite a phenomenal gig last night, I understand.
I was. It was sold out show at King Tut's, and Chris Looms, the booker, told me about them a while ago. I think it was supposed to be booked for like maybe before the pandemic, so it had been rescheduled a couple of times. And he was like, "Oh, you should work that show if you can, because you'll really like the band and straight up your street and everything." And then as soon as I listened to them, I sent them on to you and Kev, because they're just pure. Like the guy that's a singer in the band Affleck's Palace, he runs a label called The Spirit of Spike Island. So, straight away you know what you're onto there, and it's pure. If anybody likes kind of like 90s baggy indie, North Side, Happy Mondays, Stone Roses, all that kind of thing, these guys are kind of doing it with a slightly different twist. At least they're doing original songs. They're not doing like covers or anything, and it's very much in that kind of style. And the support band Pastel were amazing as well. They opened for Liam Gallagher at Nebworth last month, so they were just wee guys, like two of them from Manchester, three of them from Swansea, and it was packed at Tuts last night. And I have to give a shout out to Dickie Fideni, who accosted me at the bar and said they knew me from the telly. so I mean, I don't think this could be classed as the telly, but I guess you can watch it on your telly, which is a thing. But we're not quite top of the pops.
I love Denny because I spent a bit of time in there when we were doing the research for the Nearly Mocking book. Obviously, he was from that part of the world, but that freaks me out a wee bit when you get a picture on Twitter of someone watching Axum on their big screen TV, because I'm very old-fashioned in many things, including my hairstyle, apparently, JP, and one of them is my telly. I've not replaced my TV for 20 years. I don't watch it. I rarely watch TV. I mean, it's probably just a modern thing that if you're going to watch anything, it's maybe on a tablet or whatever. I never switch my telly on, so I couldn't get. It's not a smart telly. Let's just put it that way. It's quite smart looking, but it's not smart in that respect. So I couldn't watch Axon, even if I was that way inclined to watch it on the big screen, and I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. However, if you are watching on the big screen, welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. We started off with a bit of music. We were down in Manchester on Monday. We were speaking to a Hacienda legend, DJ Dave Haslam, and I'll tell you what. All that kind of stuff does come back to home to roost, though, because we might be doing something November, December time with a Mancunian legend, and part of that is they want to come to Celtic Park. So it all ties back to Celtic somehow, some way. It comes back to Celtic and Kerrydale Street. We're going to be having a wee overview of where we are, JP, in terms of who's in, who's out, what else needs to be done before Sunday's game, and a few other bits besides. But before we do that, before we get into the nitty-gritty, how should Ange line up for the curtain raiser being part of that? Talk me through that T-shirt over your right shoulder. That is one of the best I've seen Celtic-related online for some time. That is a cracker.
I love it. I mean, I've long been a fan of Celtic fan art, going right back to, do you remember the site 6T7?
You told me about them. Yeah. Is that the one that you got the T-shirt from?
Yeah, I got that. I got a Neil Lennon T-shirt, which was kind of like a black star with Lennon's face in the middle of it, and I got the Mohammed Abdul Salim, the first Indian player, got that as well. But they had loads, and it's obviously doesn't exist anymore. But there was some really really good designs. I'd love to go back and see what the other ones were, because I genuinely can't remember. My memory's all right, but I can't remember. There was some other crackers on 67, and you're going back. That's like 15 years ago. So, but there's been a huge kind of explosion of fan art T-shirts and stuff like that, just because I guess people are more creative now maybe. And that one there, aidencraiganart.com is a oh, there you go. Aye.
That also, look at the colours. It also shows you your colours are more true to the design. That shows you how discoloured my camera is.
Yours looks like brown. I mean, it's not that colour. It's dark. It's kind of bottle green, and McStay in in the much maligned people's away.
Now iconic, I would suggest.
Well, yeah, you see a lot of them kicking about the games now because of this, the DH gate and the repress, Chinese represses. So you can always tell that it's just a bit too good. Like the quality, like you see the colours and you're like, that's not an original. That's a brand new one. So, but no, it's a great T-shirt, and aye, thanks for sending it over.
Superb.
So you had them on sale at the State of Mind thing on Saturday.
We did. I mean, let's be honest here, JP. If we were really just trying to hook everybody in with clickbait, we've not done so well in the first 5 minutes, have we? We're talked about music and T-shirt design and an old, now defunct company from 15 years ago. But yeah, big shout out to Aidan Craigan, because he stocked his T-shirts at our launch in Edinburgh. It was in Edinburgh on Saturday, just past. And I say our launch, what I mean by that, not Axon, we launched a long time ago. In fact, have we even had a launch? I'm not sure. But a State of Mind, the company, obviously, that houses Axon and various other outlets, launched on Saturday. And what we did is we spoke to people whose art we admired, like AC and like various bands, etc., authors, and said, listen, you stock your items in our shop and we'll give you all the cash, so we won't take commission. And obviously that was a very popular set of designs. So big shout out to him, and we're going to be advertising him as well, just to give him a wee bit of an assistance there, and a few other Celtic artists as we go forward. There are very few icons from that era, I would suggest, JP, that you'd put on a T-shirt, early 90s. And I remember most of them only too well. But I think we're now in an era where there are so many players in this team who you're looking at, and I know some of them haven't been here that long, some of them came in January, but it seems as though that they are going to attain iconic status, and I'm sure we'll talk about a few of them during the next 50 minutes or so that we can get a fully rounded view of the team on Sunday. Let's talk about the incomings, who we've brought in, JP. What were you expecting this pre-season? Has the incomings met your expectations? What else have we to do?
It probably exceeded, because I didn't think we would. If you go back to the time when there was sort of question marks over whether Jota or Cameron Carter-Vickers would sign, you're kind of going, well, if we get one, then maybe that'll be good. That'll be great if we can get one of the two. But we got both of them, and I don't think that can be overstated. The whole idea of keeping them, and there's like all this stuff bandied about how have you improved from last season? You've only re-signed the same players, those two guys. And indeed, on Clyde's Super Scoreboard on Monday or Tuesday, there was a guy calling them overrated and donkeys, which, I mean, I will always be as honest as I can be about opposition players. I don't mind sort of holding my hand up and going, well, X player's great or Y player's not. But I mean, how anybody can genuinely say that they're donkeys based on their performances for Celtic last season, is just ludicrous. But keeping them was massive. And then I think everybody wanted to see competition for left back. We've got that now. Extra ammunition in midfield. We've got that now. I think maybe if Postecoglou was talking about more people coming in, that will depend on people going out. So, I mean, I'm more than happy, because you look at the brass tacks of it. Kyogo missed virtually half of the season last year. Giacomakis missed half of the season. I'm sure there was others that were out for spells here and there.
David Turnbull.
David Turnbull. Matt O'Reilly only came in January. Maeda only came in January. Hatate only came in January, and then obviously was injured for a bit as well. And he was very publicly saying, I'm drained mentally and physically. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing a very, very different player now in Hatate. Everybody's raving about him. I kind of wanted to take a step back after his debut at Tynecastle and go, right, he was good. He wasn't outstanding. Because everyone at that point, I remember the day after, everyone's going, oh, that's our next £20 million player and all that. And I'm like, whoa, calm down a bit. But his performances of late have started to shift my thinking to the point that, he is, I think quite a lot of the people said that Hatate was the best of the 4 Japanese players. There was a lot of that rhetoric, and he's certainly putting forward a good case to make that true.
See the point you made there, JP. I think you're spot on, right? Because there's been this narrative that we're standing still now. Obviously, the example you've given is just some guy that obviously, But there's been a lot of that. There's been a lot of that narrative regarding Celtic are standing still, right? And what you've said there is 100% true in that all the players you've mentioned didn't have a full season whereby they're firing on all cylinders. A lot of that's been because they've came in later on. Some of it's been because of their injury issues. I think you throw Callum McGregor into the mix because he played with an injury. I mean, he had a face mask on because he was injured, although he was able to play. And I think that, even if that affected his performance by single-digit percentages, it still affected his performance, JP. So you've got a captain who is, he deservingly going to be raising the flag. But he's in that role now. It's not new to him. It's not as though he's a novice in that role. He didn't look like a novice last season anyway. But you've got all those players who, again, pre-season under their belt. We're retaining Carter Vickers, we're retaining Jota. Fantastic. You may well get better, even if they don't become first-team players, you may well get better performances out your goalie because we've got Siegrist breathing down your neck of heart. You might get better performances out of Taylor because he's got someone really challenging for his jersey now. And that may be true in other areas of the park as well. So I totally subscribe to your view on this, in that I think it's a nonsense to suggest that even if, we only sign Jota and Carter Vickers, I think there'd be an argument to suggest that, there's players who are going to be galvanised by what happened last season. They're going to be better this time round. And you could probably even, and I know he's injured right now, but when he comes back in, Starfelt, he's not a new face. He's not going to have that settling in, bedding in period. He just needs to get up to match fitness and he'll be right back into the first team squad. But it is interesting because a lot of these things are thrown out there, JP, without any kind of fibre whatsoever. It's just an opinion that's not backed up with any kind of fact. And I think that when you look at what we're brought in at the moment, 7 players, first team players I'm talking about here, and 2 costing 13 million quid. I say 7 because I also wanted a striker. I thought the players we brought in is what I was asking for. That time I was on saying it, and someone accused me of being at Celtic Park for the first and last time this season. And I'm not sure if they got caught up in Teagsy or not, JP, or if they do exist or not. But it was nice of them to point that out. But with regards to the costings, I kept saying, in order to get the 7 players that I think we need, I reckon that we're going to have to spend like upwards of 20 to 25 million pound, and I didn't think the board would do it. We've not done that yet. We've spent 18 million quid. But the fact that we have spent 18 and there is a suggestion that we might need a couple of other players in, do you think that the board will go out and actually spend money? I know that we've been very shrewd in the fact that we brought in a couple of free agents and a loan deal, and I think the word I would describe it as is shrewd. I mean, the players were available, they're going to do that job, and I think it's low risk at that stage. But I still think that if required, if someone presents themselves, we'll buy them. And if that player is maybe a striker or potentially still a defensive central midfielder, I've heard other people saying we still need a winger. Where do you think we still need to strengthen?
I think if the Mikey Johnston thing comes to fruition and he does go on loan to Standard Liège, which is, I haven't read anything to say that that's definitely happening, but it certainly picked up a bit of traction in the last few days. And you saw that he liked, I know this is so sort of a bit kind of futile to talk about, but Mikey Johnson liked a comment that was, defending him to other Celtic fans. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't see that one. No, who defended him? Was it me?
No, it was some guy on Twitter that didn't have a profile picture and was called like Simon1427 or something like that, and he wrote this sort of screed about Celtic fans are worse under players than opposition fans, and that can be true. I wouldn't necessarily argue with that, but it's stoked the flames further for people that have got it in for Mikey Johnson, because obviously there's him liking somebody sort of defending him, and how dare a player do something as heinous as that. And It's just it all gets a bit petty when it gets down to that kind of thing, you know. But if Mikey Johnson does go, then that does leave us, you know, short of a position in that area, because he's still a member of the first team squad. He's still, if he was fit, would get game time, I would imagine. So therefore, you would think that a winger. Nobody seems to trust James Forrest. I don't think James Forrest is done. I would put my wouldn't put my flat on it. I'd maybe put the contents of my bank account on it, but that's still not too bad. But I don't think James Forrest is done. I think, and I hope that he will surprise people, particularly on the bigger stage. You know, I mean, James Forrest scores in a Champions League game. Do all these people that have been having a go at him, do they applaud? Do they turn their head? You know, what do they do? Because he scored against Lazio, and I know that's now 3 years ago, which is frightening that it's that long ago, because the pandemic doesn't make you think that was that long ago, but in actual fact it was. But I think James Forrest is more than capable of doing something on the big stage, as he's done before. And I just always go back to, there was a girl that used to sit behind me at Celtic Park up in the Jock Stein stand, and she berated every other player except from Henrik Larsson. Like every player got it tight. And I remember a game when John Hartson scored against Rangers, and it was like, I think maybe Sutton set it up and Hartson sort of hit it on the half volley into the bottom corner. It was into the Jock Stein stand, and she'd been given it, Hartson, you fat bee, all the way through the game and all that. And then he scores a goal, and then all of a sudden this lassie's looking ridiculous, because, you know, the guy's just scored the goal to put us 1-1 against Rangers, big important game. And I just turned around and my hand over my mouth like that. And then a few of the others round about me all did that as well. And she was like, aye, whatever, he's still rubbish, aye. You know, and you're like, you can't please some people. I'm not saying that James Forrest has given us a lot of food for thought in recent times to suggest that he's going to be back to the player that we know he can be, but at least give him a chance. You know, I think he was out injured for a long period of time. He's had a pre-season. Yes, he's not been on fire in the pre-season games, but I think, you know, the real nitty-gritty starts on Sunday, and from then on, I think that's when you judge him. You know, you judge his performances from there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the fact that I don't think he's done brilliantly in the pre-season, but I'm looking at some moments last season, JP, and I think that he was particularly, for me, he was particularly good in the semi-final of the League Cup, for example. I think that by Leverkusen away, I think he played particularly well. And just last week, everybody's entitled to come in and give us their opinion on that. But again, the opinion can then be challenged. So someone came in last week to say that James, because I mentioned, I'm always looking at this 500 club and the players that enter the 500 club. And interestingly enough, the last one to enter that, there's only a dozen players that have played 500 or more competitive games for Celtic. Scott Brown entered that. And it's guys like, you know, Pat Bonner, Alec McNair, Billy McNeil, Paul McStay. Scott Brown's in there, Jimmy Johnson, Tommy Burns. And James Forrest is heading towards that group of players. Now, that's over our entire history. And, you know, he's only 31. I keep going back to that as well. And then the counter-argument is, but he's injury-prone. Well, he has been in the last 2 seasons. And I don't think the club and the medical staff and all these guys that have got specialisms and they're experts in their field, JP, would suggest that he is injury-prone. He's maybe suffered from injuries in the last 2 years. Injury-prone for me is that you've got a niggling injury you'll never shake off. So, you know, you're damaged goods. If he was damaged goods, why would we give him that extension to his contract? You know, and I just don't think we would. And it's people who know a lot more about fitness and conditioning than you and I and everybody else, probably in the comment section right now, not belittling anyone because you still have an opinion. But last week the opinion was he's heading towards 500 games. He's probably only performed in 50 of them. And I think that's unfair because he scored almost 100 goals. I think he's on 94 goals. It's either 94 or 96, and he's on the exact same assists. So, you know, you're in the ballpark of 200, you know, goal creations or goal scoring performances. And he's done that in more than 50 games. So I think it's a wee bit unfair. I don't think he's a first pick. I don't think he is a first pick. But I think he's very important to that 15 or 16 players who are there or thereabouts, JP, that if someone drops out, You know, you don't wince at the sight of James Forrest. I certainly don't. I know some people might disagree. At the sight of his name in the starting lineup, I don't think that at all. I do feel a wee bit more like that when I see Mikey Johnson. I do. I don't think Mikey has, for some time, done enough in a game to actually make a positive impression. You know, turn a game on its head, turn it from a draw to a win. I've not seen that for some time for Mikey Johnson, but we have, even last season, seen it from Jamesy Forrest. And another thing with regards to that, right, so we brought in a loanee, Jens. We're going to talk about him, the fact that he might be injured for Sunday's game. But if we're sitting on 18, and it can't just be done on, we must spend £25 million, but obviously the budget's a huge part of it. And if the spend isn't finished and we still bring in one or two players, it's going to push us over the £20 million mark. If it doesn't, then we run with what we've got until January. And I think that's also a risk because we have trimmed the squad massively. I mean, with regards to the outgoings, if we move on to the outgoings, and I'll bring some comments up, I appreciate it's 20 minutes in. I think I've been maybe not as impressed with outgoings as I have the incomings, because I mean, like you said at the top of the show, to bring in CCV and Jota is astonishing. It's like two marquee signings in one pre-season. But I've been really impressed with the amount of players we've been able to ship out, JP. But what it has done is it's left us with a smaller first team squad, and I think that's why a couple of other bodies would be useful. From those that have left, who surprised and who disappointed you?
Oh, who surprised? I mean, I don't really think it was a surprise that Beaton and Rogic left. You know, I think surely Beaton was at the point in his career where he'd become a bit part player at Celtic, and you know, it was probably time for him to go and seek first team football elsewhere. I mean, I can't believe he stayed at Celtic as long as he did. You know, if you add up the amount of games that he played, so Beaton leaving wasn't too much of a surprise. Rogic leaving, he kind of got the impression that Rogic did want to go maybe a while ago, and maybe Ange Postecoglou persuaded him to stay for one last season just to to help him adjust to the environment. So him leaving, not so much. It's quite surprising that he's not got a club yet. You know, I mean, his current activity in pre-season has been spotted outside Eusebio Delhi with Scott Bain and Ryan Christie, and being in a photobomb in a One Direction, Louis Tomlinson from One Direction. Was
that the 20-minute Tims guys that noticed that? What a spot that was!
It's a pretty good spot, but it's strange to think that a player of his talent is, you know, there's talk of him going to, is it Jakarta and you know, all these sort of, you know, backwater leagues where he could still surely do it in a, maybe not a top league, but I mean, I'd hate to think that Tom Rogic played out his days, you know, in relative football wilderness, you know, away from the cameras, you know, and you maybe get like this grainy footage of him scoring like a mazy wonder goal and putting into the top corner in, you know, some random stadium somewhere. But it's getting obviously close to the start of the season and he's not got a club. So that's a bit surprising. The rest that left, refresh my memory because I can't really remember. So,
well, they were the two biggies, and I think that the ones I was most happy about, and again, by the way, I agree with you on Beaton. I think it was time to go. Rogic, I was sad. I think most of us were sad that Rogic went, but the other ones that I'm really impressed with is the likes of Bolingoli, Soro, Barkas, and even some of the kind of fringe players where they need to get out there and play football. So I was happy that Scales is away on loan. Osaze Arigide, obviously yesterday it was confirmed. And I just think that in Montgomery, of course, that we've worked probably as hard getting players out the door as we have bringing them in. And it's almost as important. Dembele was a big disappointment for me. I felt that this time last year, you were thinking definite last chance saloon for Karamoko. You could have written off the previous season for him. Not all the players, because some of them played a lot of games, but I just think, you know, he didn't get enough game time in Neil Lennon's final season. And if anyone was going to turn that around, it was going to be him, and he gets injured in pre-season. So I think by November, December time, I was writing off his Celtic career on here. And it came to pass that was the case. What he goes on to achieve, who knows? But, I just think back to the fact he was a generational talent at 13, 14, 15, tug of war between Scotland and England, and his Celtic career never really got started. So I was disappointed with that, but I'm happy with the other names I mentioned. And I do hope that Ajeti is added to that list as well, because he's nowhere to be seen, is he?
Nah, it doesn't say a lot for, well, we all know the recruitment that summer was pretty bad, or certainly that season, and most of those guys have been shipped out. That you could just tell that there was no turnaround in their Celtic career going to happen. There was no way back in. It was a case of, let's just hope somebody comes along and puts an offer on the table for them, and thankfully I guess that is the case. When you asked about players leaving, I was thinking about players that had contributed rather than players that hadn't. But yeah. I mean, those guys really didn't. And it'll be interesting to see how they fare in their respective clubs. I think was there some site or something that did like a kind of loan watch? I don't know if I ever saw that on Twitter or something like that, but like somebody had set up an account to watch the Celtic players or when they were on loan at other clubs, because it's quite hard to keep up with all these different leagues, but I would be interested to see the appearances that they make. First and foremost, the appearances that they make for the clubs, and then how they play in those games, because it'll be a damning indictment of Celtic signing policy if they go elsewhere and don't do anything elsewhere. And you're like, we paid money for these guys, we good money as well in some cases. Obviously, Barkas being the sort of standout one, but I think the players leaving have left us a bit thin on the ground. And you talked about comments from last week. I foolishly delved into the YouTube comments, which can be a quagmire at the best of times. Sometimes you get people saying really nice things, and that's cool, and then other times you get people coming in two-footed. And last week we were at ITK and talking about a Twitter clique, because we brought up the catfish, and it's like, I'm sorry, but if you're on Twitter, how could you not have known that was going on? That was not a clique. And then I made the point to the guy or girl who made the comment in the YouTube comments. I was like, it made a news story. I shared the article. There was a news story. Fair enough. Maybe it was a bit much, creating a news article about it. But the fact is that there was enough talk about it and traction to create a news article. So it wasn't as if it was just like me and you talking about something that only me and you knew about. It's like it was all over the place. I'm sure it was Celtic Twitter was trending at one point. But I think the same person also called Aaron Moy an aging has-been at 31. So there you go. That's someone's opinion on Aaron Moy. I know that maybe a lot of people have that opinion, but to call someone a has-been at 31 is a bit much, and you do obviously immediately want to go back to Lubo and other players that we've brought in that have done a job over the age of 30. It's not as if that's not happened before. I get that there's been a lot of players that we've brought in over the age of 30 that haven't contributed. You could reel them off, but I mean, give the guy a chance. There was people on his back and after the game on Saturday for a couple of misplaced passes, and you're like, guy's probably not. He's barely trained. He's not played a game for a while. I certainly wouldn't be writing him off. We'll see how things are at the end of the season with Aaron Moy and James Forrest for that matter, because I'm fully aware that James Forrest might not have a great season, and everyone will then turn around and go to anybody defending Forrest or Moy at this point. They'll be like, see, you were defending him and you said that he was going to do something, and I've said all I'm saying is give the guy a chance to do something. I'm not saying he's going to do something, but it seems so premature to have these outlandish opinions on people when you've not given them the chance, especially with Moy as well. I mean, that's pretty wild to be writing him off.
It was, and again, there is obviously a Twitter culture as well, whereby you've got that instantaneous response and reaction to every nuance of Celtic Football Club. So we're on this roll, and we've got Carter Vickers, we've got Jota, and we're up here in terms of expectations. And then a free agent, 31-year-old, without a club since I think January. Was it January? Was it as long ago as that? And then some of the reaction you got on social media, you thought, wow, just take a moment to actually look at the situation here. I don't think he's a first pick in the Celtic team, because I've got my view on the midfield, which we'll give when we get to the starting 11, the predictions for that. And it is only predictions, like you were saying earlier. But I'm not going to make a decision on Moy until I see how he progresses in a Celtic jersey. But again, you've got to trust, and I don't just mean blind loyalty, blind trust. You've got to trust the fact that Ange Postecoglou worked every single day at Lennoxtown with Nir Bitton and Tommy Rogic. He had known Rogic before he came to the club. He spoke about him, I think, in his initial press conference when he met the fan media, and he spoke about his conditioning, the fact he had, and his words were he had problems with his body and his fitness, etc. But he's watching him every day, and that comes down to application, comes down to attitude, how his style fits Ange's style, and not just Ange's style of last season, because Ange had to do something last season to get the job done. And I think in season 2, because he has weathered the storm, if you like, JP, it's going to be completely different. And now maybe he did get that 1 year out of Tommy Rogic that other managers couldn't have got. And he's looking at a guy who he's worked with in the international setup, in Aaron Moy, and he knows a lot more than I do about the player, and also a lot of the people who were very, very critical on Twitter and other social media platforms about Moy. So I'm willing to give him a chance. I don't regard him as a first pick, but it's down to him to perhaps improve the players who are first pick players and who want to keep the jersey as well. But yeah, that is the reaction. I don't know how on earth you could say a Twitter clique. It's not as though there's only 600 registered users on the thing. I mean, it's quite a big clique. Get on it or not. The thing with the subscribers is we can change the subscriber chat to subscriber only during the live show, but you've got nothing you can do unless you block the user and the amount of comments they make after the show's ended. So you tend to get worse ones afterwards.
The person was clearly a Celtic fan, obviously, because surely why would you waste your time, writing, a fairly meaty paragraph commenting on a Celtic podcast if you weren't a Celtic fan? But I just think, it's quite baffling, this the negativity as you get there. It's why I don't tend to look at it that often. So apologies if anybody's ever written anything directly to me that's nice and I've not replied, because sometimes it's better for your your sanity to not look at the YouTube comments, because it tends to be the place where anonymous people like to vent their spleen, so to speak.
It's true, and it is unfortunate, as you say there, JP, because what tends to happen is you miss a lot of the good, positive stuff that comes through as well. Now, we are going to be inviting a fellow Celtic fan into the stream today for 5 or 10 minutes to talk about a cause very close to his heart. I think that when you get the opportunity, JP, to help someone out who's maybe doing a bit of fundraising, or they want to raise awareness of a cause, then we've got a platform here mainly viewed by Celtic fans these days, and we can get them involved to tell us a wee bit about it as well. So bear with me while I send the invite out, but hopefully we'll be hearing from Jamie in not too distant future as well. But before we do that, let's have a look at the pre-season, right? We were speaking there, and I think we were both in agreement. We've not seen a great deal from Forrest that would suggest he's going to go and have his best season in the Celtic jersey, but go out and prove us wrong, James. I'd love to see it. Who have you been impressed with? Who has stood out for you in the games that we've played so far?
Daisen Maeda, by a stretch, looks really sharp. I mean, that goal at the weekend, audacious is the word I would use for that. I mean, what a goal. I thought he'd kind of put it by the post. To which Stephen from 20 Minute Tims reminded me and Melly about the Mario Balotelli drag back, where he just dragged it actually by the post. Like, he had an opportunity to finish it either left or right foot, and he decided to do that kind of step over drag back, and he just put it like meekly by the post, and Pep Guardiola went mental at him. Oh no, Mancini, sorry, went mental at him. But I mean, to take it on that turn and score like that was really impressive. And I guess just his all-round play. I did say last January, with everything I read about him and had heard about him, I wondered if he could possibly be the best January signing ever, at that time. And he's certainly looking to prove that to everybody. Hatate as well has looked great. O'Reilly as well at times. I think O'Reilly's got a lot more to offer. I think once he really settles into the side, I think it'll be a different kettle of fish with O'Reilly. We've not really seen that much of Giakoumakis, mostly because he had a child, didn't he? So there's not been a lot to say about him. But I don't know, just in general, we've not been beaten. Fair enough, we've conceded some goals. I think we've conceded some goals at points in games when the team's been changed, and we've kind of maybe sort of taken our eye off the ball a little bit, which you can't really excuse, because at the end of the day, you can't do that in the games that matter. But in the games that matter, you're not going to be making wholesale changes to the side in the second half. So you'd like to think that what we saw in the first half from the team will be replicated in starting on Sunday.
I liked that quote from Ange. These games aren't about winning games, it's about preparing to win games. And just putting that into perspective, there's so much happening in the pre-season games that will not be the norm on Sunday, which will be the first one. Now, Jamie is waiting in the waiting room. We're going to bring him in and have a wee chat. And then we'll get into some of your comments and look at the predicted 11. So I'm just going to bring Jamie in now. Jamie, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you great. How you doing, lads? Are you all right?
We're good. Now, we were actually just talking, Jamie, about some of the more negative sides of Twitter, but a positive is that often you're able to share a message, you're able to engage with fellow Celtic fans, those of a similar state of mind, and you can share that message, and that's what we hope to do today. So, Jamie, you are currently pushing a cause very, very close to your heart, obviously. I want you to explain all about that and all about your boy and what we as Celtic fans can do to help you.
Of course. You're absolutely right about the positive side to social media as well, because beforehand I used very little social media, and now unfortunately I'm having to use it all. So basically what's happened to my family within the last year is my wee boy, who's also called Jamie, is 3.5 years old, and he was diagnosed around 3 months ago with a disease called Duchenne. Now, for you that don't know what Duchenne is, it's a terminal illness. It's a rare genetic disease, and to keep it brief, basically, it means that his muscles will waste in his body, unfortunately, and it's due to his body not producing any dystrophin. So, as it stands, there's no cure, there's no nothing available for these boys, and it's just something that can really just appear out of the blue. So basically, our cause at the minute is the NHS. Sorry, can do only so much at the minute, and boys in this situation, the only treatment available is steroids. So the gist of it is that most boys will be wheelchair bound before they're 8-year-old and only live into their late teens, early 20s. So basically, where we're at the minute is we've done a lot of research, which I'm sure anybody in my situation would, and we've came across an opportunity where there's infusions that are helping kids in similar situations and keeping their bodies strong and giving them basically the best chance of living. So where we're at the minute is we're lucky enough to have been able to book our first treatment. We go in October to South America, and the unfortunate part of this is it's costing us £20,000 a treatment, and we have to go 3 times a year. And as it stands, that's what we're looking at doing for, until there's a cure for this horrible disease.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've been very grateful through friends, family, a lot of people that we know, and we've reached out and we've managed to meet our target for our first trip, which is great, and I'm so grateful. And your friends and family can only do so much, and then you try and extend on that to try and get your story out to see if there's people that can help you, and naturally you look to things that you love, and of course love Celtic, so we're basically just trying to share our story as far as we can, and we're hoping that with the help of your guys kindly inviting me on today, is if I could just share my story and get out to as much people, and if anybody can help us in any way, we would be overly grateful. But even just talking about it and making people more aware of this, because I don't know about you guys, but I never heard of this disease in my life.
No.
Until I was told a couple of months ago, and we only noticed it through our boy as he was having a bit more difficulty than possibly other kids from getting off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
You would look at my wee boy Jamie at the minute and you would think, God, you're just a happy wee soul. But this horrible disease will, just gradually take that away from him and from us. So we're just trying to reach out and connect with, as many people as we can, and hopefully we, people can possibly help us if possible.
Yeah. What age is your wee man?
He's 3.5.
3.5. And I think that going back to this is where, social media and technology can be a force of good. And at this moment in time, there's about 600 people tuning in, Jamie, but over the period that could rise, it'll be over 5,000, it could get us up as much as 10,000. And what I would suggest is anybody who's able to assist visits your Twitter page, because you've got a pinned tweet with the fundraising link on there as well. We'll do the same on the bottom of this video. What is your Twitter handle so that people can find you and help you?
My Twitter username is @Jamie with 3 A's in it, T7.
Now, I'll share all of this as well, Jamie, because we have in the past supported causes, and those that are listening and those from further afield have pulled together and assisted people. Thoughts and prayers with you and your family and the wee guy, and hopefully we can do something to assist you, pal. And again, you're welcome to come on here anytime you want, just to keep drumming up a wee bit of support and pushing that as well. So thanks very much for taking the time out, and all the very best in October and beyond that as well. And we'll keep supporting you, pal, all right?
Thank you very much, guys. Really
nice
appreciate
one.
it.
Cheers,
all right,
Jamie.
Take care, Jamie.
Thanks,
cheers,
guys.
pal. Thank you.
Cheers, bye.
Bye-bye. Unbelievable. I mean, we were talking there, JP, about sometimes how nasty and social media can be, but it can also be used as a platform where you can pull a great deal of people together that you would never be able. I mean, I don't know 31,000 people, but on Twitter I do. I never will know that amount of people. But you can pull people together and hopefully do something positive. So hopefully anybody out there that can help, please do so. And as I say, we'll share all the links on our socials after this broadcast and in the description underneath as well, JP. But hopefully we can use the platform for good and for positivity.
I tell you, it really kind of hammered. You could read that story, you could read that story on Twitter, you could read that story in the paper, somebody could tell you about it, but to actually hear that wee boy's dad talk about that, I mean, fair play to him for being able to speak about it so eloquently, because I was trying not to get upset there when he was talking about it, because it's I've got my friend James got a 4-year-old boy, like that. It's similar age, and you just think, how sad that is when someone gets news like that. And yeah, I really hope that everything can be done to help him, give him the best chance of a better life,
And you hope that during that period where the funding has been self-funded, something can be done either on our NHS or, as Jamie was saying there, maybe a cure will be found, because 3.5 years of age, and you just hope we can do something to help him along the way as well. So please do that. And as I said, ladies and gentlemen, everybody who's tuning in, we will share those links. It puts everything into perspective. We're talking about a game of football on Sunday. It doesn't seem as important after hearing a real life tale like that from Jamie. So thoughts and prayers with Jamie and all of his family and the wee guy as well. I was also thinking, JP, about aspirations this season. Aspirations, and after last season, what was your aspirations this time last year? I know that's a question that gets thrown out. I mean, seriously, was I positive and upbeat? And I remember Kev Graham continually saying, as long as we're in touching distance by the new year, and I'm saying to him, that's not good enough. We need to win this league. And I thought it was unthinkable not to win the league. Whether or not I thought we could win the league was another thing. As the season progressed, I started believing that we could. What was your aspirations this time last year?
It very much felt like you were at a table in a casino with not much with not much money left, and you were just kind of like throwing, whatever you could at your last throw of the dice type thing. Because I know you were in the middle of a completely unknown period. There was an unknown manager with quite a few unknown players coming in who you hadn't seen. We're hearing a lot of chat from elsewhere about what this player or that player is going to do at Ibrox, but they've not seen them play in this league, just like we hadn't seen the players play in this league last season. It's all very well saying, we've signed this prospect from Benfica and we've signed this Adudu Dahan signing from Israel on the wing. All these things, could easily have gone the other way. So you were just kind of waiting to see with your own eyes what these players could or could not do, and also, what the manager could do. But I think one of the things that early on was Postecoglou's kind of strange interview from an airport lounge with the BBC. Do you remember that one?
Absolutely.
Where he kind of bristled at the idea that I can't remember exactly what the reporter said, but he said something along the lines of that it was a disaster or like that, or something about the end. And Postecoglou just said, "You're being awful. That's pretty strange talk," or something like that. That's not how I see this. And you got the idea earlier on that he was going to be bullish, not just with the media, but with his team and his squad as well. So yeah, I mean, I think deep down I wanted to entertain the idea that we could win the league, because I wasn't of the opinion that Rangers team were as good as they were made out to be. Obviously, they did go on to get to the Europa League final, which proves that they are a good team. You don't do that by accident. And they beat some big sides on the way there. But then that just goes to show how good a job Postecoglou did, because, I'm not buying into this, they went to European final, they took their eye off the league. No chance did they take their eye off the league. Their eye was definitely on the league title as well. And it's just unfortunate that they came up against a really motivated and well put together Celtic team. So yeah, I think deep down I wanted to win it. If you were to ask me honestly at that time, there's no way I would have said we're going to win the league. I would never be that kind of rash to sort of say things like that. But I was optimistic, but I certainly wasn't thinking that we could win the league. And the idea that we wouldn't win the league and what we wouldn't get as a result, and what we'd give to the other side as a result, was something that was quite sobering at the time, because you thought to yourself, we're in this, how are we in this place? How have we gone from winning 4 consecutive trebles to being trophyless with a brand new manager and about a 70 or 80% new team, new first team 11. So that's what I was thinking last season. But as ever, you put your faith in the side, you buy your season ticket. This season, by the way, I thought I'd renewed my season ticket, and I went to flash my card at the Blackburn game and it went red. Went into the ticket office and the woman went, "You've not renewed your season ticket." And I went, "What?" I honestly thought I had just done it automatically. Hadn't paid attention to whether or not the money had come out of my account. She went away for about 5 minutes. And I'm in that time, I'm thinking, I've lost my season ticket. Like the one I've had for 9 years in the same seat. And then she comes back and goes, "Right, your seat's been sold for Blackburn, Norwich and Aberdeen.
Right.
But you can get it for after that, but you need to pay it in full right now." And I normally pay it in instalments. So I had to shell out 700 quid and I won for my season ticket. So this Sunday I won't be in my season ticket seat. I'll be in I think in the main stand somewhere, or like maybe kind of just to the left of the main stand, in the corner between the Jockstein and the main stand, sitting randomly there, which will be strange, but I'll be back in my regular seat after that. But
Nightmare,
Well,
JP.
it would have been a bigger nightmare if I'd lost my season ticket, to be fair. And when she said you need to pay it in full, that was kind of like, I was like, right, I'm okay with that. But even though that's going to dent me, I was like, I'm okay with that because at least I've got my seat, you know. And then on the Blackburn game, I went and sat. My seat that they'd given me was kind of near my seat, and I went over and sat with Sean and some of the other guys, and there was a wee old woman sitting in my seat. It was just so strange, just looking down and seeing someone else in my seat. It was like, it was a strange sight, but all's well that ends well.
Always remember that, your seat, you do become attached to it, obviously. And I remember we used to catch the Celtic bus from a pub in Fife called the White Gates. It was the Phoenix back then, a bit like Phoenix Nights, you could just imagine, right? But if you went in, my old man would take me in, and I was obviously just a bairn. And you had to watch where you sat. It was one of the boozers in the old mining villages.
Everyone had their seats.
Everybody had a seat. You had to watch which seat you sat in. It was, come to Fife. Aye, very friendly place. It's all right. I'm not slagging it off. Let's get some of your comments in. Beach Boys is looking for Hart, Juranovic, Carter Vickers, Julian. Julian? Interesting. Taylor, Kalmak, Hatate, O'Reilly, Jota, Kyogo, Maeda. How much of that do I disagree with? Probably just Julian. If you change Julian there to Welsh, you've got my team. And I'm only saying Welsh for two reasons. Firstly, we're hearing that there's a slight injury being picked up at Lennoxtown by our new signing, Maurice Gents. And secondly, Welsh has got the game time under his belt this pre-season that I don't think Julian does. And so that team's my team, JP, other than Julian. What's your thoughts?
Well, there was people sort of saying, I saw a few people sort of saying their predicted sides, and they were clamouring for Jens to just come in instead of Welsh. And you're thinking, there's no way Ange Postecoglou is playing Welsh in the starting 11 in all these games alongside other players who are, most of the rest of that starting 11 are guaranteed starting 11 Celtic players. And then he's just going to bomb Welsh out and bring in a guy that's been there for 5 minutes. You'd like to think there's some sort of hierarchy, and if we're turning down loan bids or, permanent bids for Welsh from Toulouse or anywhere else, and Postecoglou's saying he's part of the plans, it doesn't really look very good for Welsh if he's getting bombed out for a guy that's been here and not proved himself and not been, part of the squad. Because I don't think we've not laid out money on Jens. He's just a loan signing with an option to buy. So it's not as if we've paid top dollar for him and you'd be expecting him to just slot straight into the team. And so I think it would be extremely harsh if, regardless of Jens' fitness, even if he was fully fit, if you saw the team on Sunday and Jens was starting with Carter Vickers and Welsh was on the bench, I'd feel pretty hard done by with Welsh, and I'd probably be speaking to my agent about things, because it's not really, like, Jens is yet to prove himself. He's played, a half in a friendly. I don't think that warrants starting in the first league game of the season. So whatever people's thoughts are in Welsh aside, it's the manager's call, and I would expect the manager to pick Welsh on Sunday, and probably the rest of that team. I don't think you can really argue with that. I think that's been the sort of team that he's been going with in the last few games, gearing towards the Aberdeen game. I know some people have sort of said Giakoumakis instead of Kyogo because we're going up against Aberdeen. I don't really think the opposition will bother Kyogo. He'll, have a go regardless of who the opposition is. Aberdeen have played okay in pre-season against lower league opposition. Mm-hmm. They won't have Scales playing, who's been playing regularly for them. So, if we play our football on Sunday, the opposition shouldn't really matter to me. If we play like we can play, then they'll not get near us. But we'll wait and see how things pan out.
Definitely. I'll tell you what, Beach Boys, you're doing not too bad when the three of us are agreeing on a team bar one player. And I know that sometimes I get called a Stephen Welsh cheerleader because I do rate him. I really do. But I think the point you make there, JP, regarding Toulouse, but earlier on, Udinese, I think last January, were in for him as well. So there have been two occasions where had Ange not had belief in this boy, he would have got rid of him. You know, you could have quite easily got rid of the player. I think the Udinese one was a loan. I think they wanted him on loan. So absolutely for me, he's higher up the pecking order at the moment than Julien. But I don't know how bad the injury is going to be to Gents. Interestingly enough, not name dropping, not much anyway. But Peter Grant and I had a chat for the Q booing and hissing BBC podcast, which is going to be airing tomorrow. But if somebody says, listen, you can have a chat with Peter Grant, you're going to do it, right? I certainly would. He's for my childhood centenary team. And Granty, of course, was he worked very closely with Matt O'Reilly and Maurice Gents at Fulham. So he speaks all about that. He also gives a bit of an insight, and by the way, maybe it's because I've not seen articles that he's spoken about in the past, but he gives a bit of an insight into the Eddie Howe saga that I wasn't aware of. So I don't know if other people out there might feel the same way. So he gives a wee bit of that, throws out a few suggestions as well as to why that all broke down. And I'm pretty sure I'll share the links on the Twitter and the other social media platforms as well, JP. But I love Granty. I love Peter Grant. I think, you know, he was a scapegoat. He was. I mean, we were talking about a scapegoat earlier in Jamesy Forrest. Remember the stick Peter Grant used to get?
Oh God, I mean, like it was not fancied at all at that time. But I mean, see, when I was a wee guy, I didn't have that negativity. There wasn't really players that I singled out, especially if they were Scottish. You know, there was nobody that I would ever really. I wasn't old enough to have that kind of knowledge to be like, oh, I don't like that guy, or I don't like how he plays, or he's not good enough, or anything like that. As far as I'm concerned, because he was wearing a Celtic strip, it was good enough. You know, I didn't have that differentiation of, oh well, I had, you know, I've got my favourites. Yeah, of course, you know, McAvenny. I love McAvenny, love Paul McStay, love John Collins, but I didn't, because I loved them, I didn't then go, oh well, I don't like Peter Grant because he, you know, doesn't do Pirlo turns and put you know, shots into the top corner. You knew that he loved Celtic, and my favourite image of Peter Grant is him hugging Tommy Burns at the Scottish Cup final. When you see him and he's proper crying, like face right into Tommy Burns' shoulder, you know, and it's just brilliant. I think he hugs Charlie Nicholas as well. Charlie Nick's in the suit. You know, those images at the end of that game are iconic. Well, for me, they're maybe not iconic in the grand scheme of things, because you think about the sort of things we've done since, you know, winning trebles on the bounce and all that, you know, like winning one solitary Scottish Cup. But I mean, that cup was so big at that time for
massive.
Anybody.
Massive.
You know, unfortunately, I'm old enough to remember it well, and you know, for anybody of a younger age, we hadn't won anything for so long, and then for that to happen was massive. Yes, it was only a 1-0 victory over Airdrie, but just to see those players lift a trophy again was huge. Probably much like what the other side of the city experienced not too long ago.
I remember it was 6 years, obviously, since we'd won a trophy, JP, and in that 6 year, Rangers had cleaned up league titles, certainly, and they'd won a few doubles in there as well. I don't know if they made. We stopped the treble in 1989, certainly, and I remember it being at the game, and like you say, the Charlie Nicholas thing, because he's walking about, still looking like a 1986 version of Bono with the hair. But it was 1995 by this time, and they were singing "The Fields Athen Rye." But I do look back fondly on that. I'm not going to give the game away, but Grant said that Tom Rogic put him in mind of a player he played with. So there you go. It all will be revealed tomorrow.
Check this out, Paul. I've just thought I'd show you this. So when I was a wee guy, I used to when I tape the highlights off the telly, I would put pictures out of the paper. So there's Peter Grant.
There he is. Oh, what a jersey. What a jersey.
And next to him, Mike Galloway. Above him, Charlie Nick. And then the other side, Pat McGinley and John Collins.
I like that training talk. By the way, if you want that transferred to a digital file, just bring it through to the studio, mate. I'll do it for you.
I would, actually.
Is that video number 19?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Love it. How many of us have got boxes of them, ladies and gents? I'm one of them. Absolutely. Yeah, as we always do, we've ran over a wee bit, JP. That's what we tend to do, and that's the one we're up. But what I can say for sure is that Jamie, who joined us on the show today, told us all about a cause very close to his heart. His wee 3.5-year boy has been struck down with this condition, which is debilitating. It's going to, it's going to shorten his life, and it's going to lessen the quality of his life as well. So what we hope to do is spread that word, and anyone who can assist in any way, we're going to have the links to the fundraiser underneath this video, and we're going to share Jamie's Twitter handle on our platforms as well, so you can follow him and support him. And hopefully there will be a time when that kind of treatment, JP, is available on the NHS, or indeed there is a cure for that condition as well. And if anyone can help, then the Celtic family, and I know that sounds like a cliche, but not under these circumstances, certainly can. JP, always a pleasure just to get a catch up with you, but all the better for it being about Celtic for the last hour. An absolute pleasure. Enjoy it, even though you're not sitting on your seat on Sunday. Enjoy the game on Sunday.
I will. On that note, just on the positivity, somebody said some very nice words last Thursday at the Queen's Park Arena as I approached the bar. Chap was like, "Oh, I feel like I know you, JP Axel." I was like, my mates were just like, it was Brendan I was with, and he just busted out laughing. I said, "Oh, I get slagged about this by him when people." Because Brendan walks about going, Axum, man. And so Matt at the Queen's Park Arena, thank you for telling
That's
us.
phenomenal. Can I just clarify? So you're walking down the street with a member of the Twilight Sad, yes, but you're the one that gets noticed for being an Axum.
I never actually thought of it like that. Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah, there you go. That's right back in his face for slagging me. And he slags me all the time anyway, so this is just giving him new material to slag. But then I said to Matt, I was like, "Oh, he went to school with Paul, by the way," and he was like, "Oh, right, anyway."
Brendan was a particularly talented footballer, by the way. I've got to say that in his defence. Yeah, for sure. So there we have it. Thank you everybody for getting involved. Like the video, subscribe to us on YouTube, and as I say, we're going to share the links so that we can help Jamie and his 3.5-year-old wee boy with the treatment that he needs. It's always a pleasure. JP, thank you for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind, sir.
Cheers, Paul.